Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the Bloomy Brain Podcast, where you come to water and nourish your brain, in turn, seeing your mind, body, and spirit bloom. This evening, I have a very special guest with me. If you guys would like to welcome Amber Law, the owner of Healing Leaves Holistic Center and Inner Guidance Hypnotherapist. Welcome, Amber.
Hi, thank you so much for having me, Carly.
You're so welcome. I'm so excited to have you here and that we could really work this out. And how much fun is it that we're doing this on a Saturday
fun.
night?
It's
right?
my first podcast ever. I'm excited. Yeah.
Guys, oh my gosh, I feel so lucky to have you on. You speak so well. I could see you doing so much more of this.
I
So
would love to, especially, well, I'll wait and say, but with so many practitioners at Healing Leaves.
I think you guys could have your own
opportunity for everyone to tell their story.
Yeah,
Really
absolutely.
wonderful.
Well, I'm really excited that I get to be the first one to kind of get you into this and, just go for it. We're going to have fun tonight.
Absolutely.
So how are you feeling? I know you told me that you were in class all day today.
All day, yes. So this is a lot of firsts today. I took my first Reiki class, and it was a different type of Reiki than normal, taught by Jessica Bennett. And it was a really fascinating class, really spoke to my heart. And it was from 10 to 6, about 6:30, I think, when we finished up. And
Wow.
and kind of came right on over here. And yeah, it was a beautiful class, though. And she has some more upcoming classes. She's just an amazing teacher, very gifted and talented worker.
That's incredible.
Healer.
All of the things,
whatever.
right?
Yeah. What would I call her exactly? I guess
multifaceted.
Yes.
Healer. I love that. And I just have to say, I love how immersed you are in your business. That really says a lot about how passionate you are about what you do. So I think that that's really cool. But why don't you tell the guests? There may be people, and even myself, I feel like if you asked me, I may not even be able to give the best definition of Reiki, but what is Reiki exactly?
Well, so basically it's allowing and moving the ego aside and allowing source energy to just channel through you, bringing the higher self and fully embodying that. And I cannot answer to the typical Reiki since I haven't taken that. And this one, what's really unique is she's teaching us to download our own symbols for the clients or for ourselves. So if we, for instance, need to feel more grounded, we may bring the tree of life down and just place it wherever we're feeling. So it's really about learning to access the higher self, learning to listen to our intuition and kind of understand how it works. Yeah.
That is just so interesting to hear about. I mean, all of the things that you guys do at Healing Leaves are so intriguing to me. And you guys are just all so talented. So why don't you tell the audience a little bit about Healing Leaves and what you do and, what makes you passionate to be there and be the owner?
Wow, yeah. So many things, and we do have so many talented practitioners. So really what we've come up with is the concept of taking a holistic healing center, which would mean, complementary medicine or things that aren't quite as ordinary. And then we're blending it with a day spa type service. So we have, we came up with this in a fun way, from skin to soul and everything in between. And we truly, truly have that. So yeah, starting with estheticians and then massage therapy, but everything has its own little twist. So we do have your typical facials, but then
those are far from typical.
Right. I was going to say, then our estheticians are so creative and have come up with using crystals and just other, ways, sound bowls and things like that to really make it a healing experience in itself. Yeah. And then we have massage, and even our massage therapist use different forms of kind of finding where the energy has been stuck and releasing it, and acupuncture with Patrick, and he's amazing at what he does, and he has many different things he does as well, like qigong, which is a
Oh, wow.
movement type of energy, and slow moving. I couldn't even do it service. He would do so well explaining it, but breath work and movement and moving the energy through the body, and yeah, it's just beautiful. And he does astrology as well, and then hypnotherapy, and then the Reiki and shamans. We have shaman, and we're just ever evolving. And there's workshops and classes and community and groups. So really, what I wanted is a place where we can explore all the different types of modalities and bring them together in one place where we can truly come in and really have self-care taken to the next level, where you can just pamper yourself, but you can also treat your mind, body, and spirit.
Yeah.
Truly treat it. If you are grieving and having some acupuncture, then he might say, oh, you may want to see Amber for grief, or Sami, our hypnotherapist, for grief. But really, each one of us have our strengths that might work a little bit better with what somebody is going through, and yet each one of us could also help an individual, with what they're going through too, all on its own. And so they just synergetically blend together to really give a person a whole body treatment and healing.
Yeah, like total mind, body, spirit, all of the things. And we'll get into my session and, everything that was uncovered there and that I have felt post leaving the session. And I mean, just some of the things that you mentioned, I absolutely could not agree more with, that you guys are really just, far from the rest. And I left feeling like the highest version of myself. And it was very cool to, have these sessions before venturing home around the holidays when, you're around a lot of friends, family. It's, kind of an environment that you can experience a little bit of social jet lag. So to have seen all of you guys and have been given that armor, it was almost like you guys gave me this invisible armor to put on. Not that I don't love my friends and family, but you mentioned it when we spoke the other day. I believe you called them hypnotic anchors.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, going home, we do, it is great to see our family and friends. But of course, all of us have been conditioned throughout our childhood. There's going to be triggers. There's going to be anchors. And what anchors are, hypnotic anchors, but it's anytime just something has stuck with you. Somebody said something about you or made you feel a certain way, and you believed it about yourself and brought it into your system, and it then becomes, a trigger or a belief about you, about yourself, and it can make us quite sensitive, and family and friends tend to hit those a little bit. So, and I love to look at them as learning opportunities, really. And when we can step into an observer mindset and just kind of step back and look and be like, oh, wow, that comment really hurt. Why? How can I become curious about that? And it's okay if we can't do that in the moment. And sometimes there's just not that time or the rest, But later we can use that. We can write it down and go back and use that. And then that's how we can find where there's something blocking us from, growing into the highest version of ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I just have so many thoughts swirling around in my head right now of just how amazing your practice is, and that all of this really is so true. And it was almost like you guys set me up just for me to step into my chamber of reflection and kind of step out of my body and look at these experiences, not as the emotional person living them, but as someone on the outside kind of reflecting them and taking them as they come. That way I can give my friends, my family, and acquaintances the best of me, and not even to take things, some of the hypnotic anchors fully to heart.
Personally,
yeah.
Right. You can start to see them differently when you start doing some of the work, or you can see maybe their own traumas and pain or where they're coming from. It just changes the way you are. I'm not saying that you don't ever get, or I won't ever get triggered. I mean, we all are still human and finding them, but what you're saying, and that's really what I think I'm striving to do, and all of us, is to give us tools to take into the real world with us. So, you know, when you're working with one of our practitioners, you are learning a lot, and you're getting, you know, this really just so filled up and armor, like you say, but then you're remembering and learning how to use these tools later on too, how to maybe look at things through a different perspective, or how to ground and get really into your body and be in the now moment and not so much in your thoughts. So you can be really present with the person. And
Yeah, and guys, this is really what I love about holistic healing practices is, you know, you can go and have a service done and obviously leave feeling amazing, feeling incredible, but it's a lasting effect. It's something that you get to take with you, this feeling, and you get to take these mental tools that you guys have, you know, given us, and you're able to just take on life in a much more efficient, diplomatic, charismatic way.
Right.
So I think that that's the cool thing too. And you know, we had a conversation the other day about what sets healing leaves apart, and I want to give you a moment to talk about that. But one thing that really struck me as different, because you don't really see it, you don't hear a lot of it in the world of business. There can sometimes be like an unspoken general mood or theme of competitiveness. And I think that, you know, that can be such a sticky or even yucky frame of mind, because when we're in competition, that says that we don't fully believe in what we have to offer. So you guys talking about and reiterating time and time again, there is no competition here. We think highly of every other spa in town. You know, we're going to attract our tribe, and we're not trying to take anyone from anybody else. We believe that there's, you know, enough to go around.
Right. And we definitely believe that the people who come to be practitioners with us, like they're meant to be there, or the clients who are coming into us, and we refer out sometimes. So it's also learning the resources of Wilmington too. So something we may not be able to offer, maybe functional medicine or something, or chiropractic or something different. So learning what some people may need outside of what we can provide, and help to be a place that can present that to people as well. We're just truly trying to assist the community in so many different levels and ways. And yeah, as far as our mentality and kind of our values and what we feel set us apart, is that we do each value what one another does, and we take the time to learn about one another's modalities. We get to try them out and do some sessions. And so we're all getting some constant work on ourselves, and getting a chance to take care of ourselves as well, but then also seeing what gift this other person brings. And then we're able to keep that in mind when we have someone who we might say, hey, this might also be something really good for you, or you might want to try this out, or this class is coming up. It's not ever feels, you know, we're never trying to do a sales pitch or anything. It's more just about knowing and keeping in mind what else could maybe help this person that they may not even be aware of. And by introducing them or just talking about it to them, it might be something that really helps them on their journey.
Yeah, I mean, because all of you guys' services that you offer are, you know, absolutely in congruence with one another. It's just like my mom getting her the hypnotherapy session with you, which she still needs to book. She's so excited. But I was even telling her, I'm like, I think that you should do reflexology while you're there too. So let's get you a session for that. And I might do some other things. So I'm going to go with you for sure, because I'm not letting you go alone. I want to like live in your practice. I mean, it just was, had it not have been Christmas, I might have would have stayed.
I know. and that's what I wanted when I was trying to think about the environment that I wanted, is I really wanted to be able to walk in and feel, just a place where we all feel supported and feel loved, or, at the very least, just a sense of community with one another, because
Yeah.
so many of us who do this type of work are very sensitive to energy, and we're dealing with a lot of heavy issues too. So we
Mm-hmm.
don't need to be dealing with too much work problems outside, drama and things like that.
Yeah.
So it's kind of consciously working at keeping that vibration high, but it's also not about fakeness either. Like, we
Yeah.
know that we're all going to go through some hard times and need some extra support, and that needs to be okay too. This isn't about judgment, it's about helping one another. So we're a place where practitioners can come and like rent space or have space to be a practitioner, but also be surrounded by others who understand what it is to and have kind of support, or even others saying, "Hey, check her out. It was really great. This was
Yeah.
amazing," and like boosting up that confidence. And we have people who are very, they've been doing it for a long time, or very gifted, or have just amazing credentials. And then we make some room for some of the newer people who are just learning and starting out as well. And some of the leaders in that modality may take them under their wing and kind of teach them a little bit. And so I see this as just a starting point, because there's so many ways we can expand this and help a new practitioner not only gain new clients, but gain experience and wisdom and grow their business as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of grow your business and business, what inspired or drove you to practice hypnotherapy yourself?
Wow. Yeah. I guess some of my earliest memories, my dad used to like doing some, I don't know, think he ever, maybe he read a book or something. But I remember my favorite time when he would be home and would tuck me in, he would do a little visualization about floating on a cloud or something like that. And I loved it. And I want to say that was probably my first introductory to the idea of it. I don't know if I knew what it was called.
That's so special.
And by the time I was a teenager, I just had so many books about, psychology, the mind, the subconscious, the unconscious, just deep diving into how the body works, how the mind works, how do people perceive the way they do, why, what forms the personality. It was so fascinating to me. And really, I didn't immediately go into it, although I did take some different classes along the way, and I would use it with my own children when they were going to sleep at night, or to help them visualize doing well on a test or sports performance and things like that when they were little. But I went into health coaching, and I love doing coaching and the questions, but I realized that was just a starting point. And then when I really went deep into hypnotherapy and doing the full training, I realized, wow, this is so fast, because I'm working with the subconscious mind and not so much with the conscious mind, because our conscious mind is always trying to look, for the answers, and it's talking to everyone about the problem, but it's not coming up with the solution. And a lot of times that's because it's just a little bit more buried.
Yeah.
And so when we dive into the subconscious mind, we're able to find those answers or those resources or tools that are needed, pull them up into the conscious mind, and really get to the core or to the root of the issue very quickly.
Yeah, and I mean, the session that I did with you, I completely agree with you. Consciously, it's like what we got to that day. If I was in my conscious mind, it shouldn't have been that hard to get to, but who knows? We may have never gotten to it because of all of the symbols and, the restriction that I may put on my throat chakra to not fully, all of the different things I maybe would have consciously never gotten to the root of the issue. And we covered a few different things in there, but I really think that the most profound thing was when, and you guys, so just so you guys know, I'm not asleep. She didn't put me
Yeah.
to sleep when I'm doing that, or when you're doing this to me. I was awake. I just was in, what
A
would you say?
trance.
Yeah, trance, like kind of like a
That word kind of scares
lucid.
people sometimes, but it's like eyes are closed most of the time. Some people will open up their eyes a little bit. They may visualize better that way, but it's basically going in to the alpha and then even to the deeper range of the theta brainwave state. I'm always kind of watching for signs.
Yeah.
And that's a hyper focused state, but we're focused internally. So we're turning our focus inwardly, and then we're feeling into the body and able to do so much more. So we may feel some tension or pains or different things that come up that give me clues to where there's something that might need to be worked on. So I'm always asking, check in with your body or feel into your body now. What do you feel? And if someone's saying, oh, there's this like tension coming up in my heart center or my throat all of a sudden, then we can dive in there and find out what's going on. And oftentimes that you can, I'll just stop there and let you finish what you were saying about it.
No, I mean, exactly. And to be able to share with you guys today my private, personal a walk inside my hypnotherapy session, this is emotional. Yeah. I did cry many times in the session. I kind of move through life. I don't want to say unemotional. I am extremely in touch with my emotions, but it all makes so much sense now with what we uncovered. And what that was that my my masculine energy dominates my inner female energy. And we uncovered that by visualization and me kind of her going through asking me questions. What do you see? How do you feel? How does this make you feel? Questions like that. And I started to reconcile with it. I'm like, wow, I was having these visualizations of these two different energies. If you guys can follow this at all, I know it's like
very difficult. It's almost like trying to describe a dream.
A dream. Yeah. It's in my head, so I'm going to try and bring it about for you guys. But I was seeing this like larger than life presence in me, like 8 feet tall. And then I was seeing, and it was definitely a man. And then I was seeing a female that was only like 3 to 4 feet, like not even like 3.5 feet. And I was like, that's so interesting. And why does he look like he's like thriving and she looks really hurt? And then I started thinking, we go deeper and deeper, and I'm like, and then I get emotional again, and I'm like, oh my gosh, my inner, we all have, what would you say, inner masculine, inner feminine?
Yeah, I would say that too. And just inner, inner children or aspects, different aspects of ourselves that have maybe been hurt along the way, or something about it wasn't acceptable, something about our behavior. We have to, this is a necessary part of growing up. In a way, because we have to conform to school or different things, and luckily I start to see signs of it becoming a little less. But in order to keep us safe, we can't just run wild or run out into the middle of the road or something. But sometimes we can take things wrong, we can take things different. Sometimes there's just really hurtful things that are done to us, real traumas that happen as well. And basically what happens is sometimes a little fragment or aspect of our personality may kind of get stuck, or it may sort of get pushed down. So some examples of that would be a child that's maybe singing so happy and she learned a new song at school that day, and mom might have a horrible headache and has had the worst day ever, and just finally is like, please stop, I can't take the sound of your voice anymore. And right then that could, if it sticks and if it, is powerful enough, be a root cause of, or the beginning of someone who says, I can't sing or something like that. And not to put it on a mom. I mean, I'm just trying to give an example of how that's just very human. Sometimes it's like, please, no more. And I'm not saying this ever to create guilt or fear in any parents, But that is just a prime example. And so what can happen is if we can go back in and remember that, and you can bring your adult self and the resources and what you do know as an adult, and you're kind of seeing that situation happening, not only can you maybe understand what a hard day or how it feels to have a really bad headache and just be listening to this loudness, and maybe that it wasn't meant that you actually had a horrible voice or anything like that. But then you can also validate the child and the hurt feelings and kind of just, help with that and bring it back and incorporate it back into the body. And, oftentimes as we're growing up, there will be other things that have happened along the way that kind of reinforces that belief. So that may just be the beginning. And then there may be numerous other things as we grow that reinforce that. But that is kind of a possible way. I'm not saying for everyone, but that is a possible way where someone who never would sing could find out that they have a really beautiful singing voice potentially later on, or be less afraid to sing or something like that.
And I mean, I agree with that, because with mine, upon reflecting in the moment and after the session, but definitely in the moment, it was almost like you kind of nailed it, that you're like, let's bring your inner feminine up. They need to be the same size. And I'm like, why isn't she the same size as my masculine? And then it's like, oh, wait, I know why. Because of all of the things that have been said to me by people in life, friends, family members, guys I've dated. And it's like, oh God, we come into this life like a untouched block of ice, and then life just starts chipping away at us. And while we're being sculpted into these beautiful humans, that doesn't mean it doesn't freaking hurt along the way. And I mean, after the session, because you really opened my mind a lot to tapping into that female side of me and not suppressing her to make other people comfortable anymore, and not hiding her, or hell, not even changing her to how society wants to see me. I told my little sister, I said, I have changed a lot about myself mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, and I've cultivated this person that is like the Great Wall of China, and no one can get into it, because I've made this person that no one's going to hurt anymore. I had for so long, I was innocent, I was pure, and the gates were just wide open, open to what everyone had to say. Insert an opinion here, insert rude comment there, all of these things. And then it's like, put my gate up and create this person that no one can mess with anymore. But that's not healthy. That's not living authentically.
Eventually can start to keep us from feeling love and, giving and receiving love. And to speak a little more to your case, I feel like I have so many, and sometimes it takes me a minute to come back, but yours was a very beautiful session of just symbolically. And you're absolutely right that, that large figure that you were seeing that felt more masculine and everything was the part of you that just had to keep it together and keep going, basically. Where the little one, the feminine kind of smaller energy, was the one that sort of took that sad hit, or took that hard hit, and maybe you didn't have time to process it. Maybe you tried but didn't really know how. Maybe that part wasn't really accepted any further. And so what we kind of felt like was more the masculine. It was the part of you that needed to be driven, who has to still wake up and go to school in the morning, even if somebody bullied you the next day, or go to work even if you're hurting. And that is sort of how they can start to become out of balance. It's not like anything overpowered you necessarily. It was just that, hit after hit, or
I mean, it makes
a part of you had to get stronger and keep going.
I mean, it makes me emotional all over again on this podcast. I'm having a flashback currently to 6th grade, when and when you're little, there is so much direction in your life. Go here, be at school by this time, I'm going to pick
Right.
you up at this time, you have this sport. We don't have a lot of individualism and freedom when we're
Right.
young. It's very regimented, which is great. Kids need structure, but it makes it hard to escape sometimes bullying and ridiculing. And oh my goodness, did I get bullied in school? And I'm having a flashback right now to sitting at the lunch table in 6th grade, and my parents, I started breaking out towards the end of 5th grade. And still to this day, I struggle with acne. I mean, I haven't in the past year because I have finally realized that I have a gluten sensitivity.
Oh, okay. There you go.
Causes hormone imbalance. And that's, in congruence with my thyroid. And now my thyroid is in remission over realizing this sensitivity. So thank God. But, when we were young, my parents were just doing all that they could and bringing me to the dermatologist, started getting me facials, because my skin was just so bad. I mean, I was getting called a pizza face and this and that and all of these different names. And it truly felt like school felt like a war zone. And then my parents took me to get I begged them. I'm like, please, please, can I have makeup to cover this up to go to school? From about 6th to 12th grade, I stayed home from school so often on days where I was just like, I cannot show up today. Like my face looks like there are just insane
Right.
craters. I don't want to get bullied today. And it's so sad to think back to that and think, oh my, I missed so much because I was letting what people thought of me hold me back. I missed so much. But back to the story, I was sitting at the lunch table, and these two kids they were in front of me, and they were laughing at me. They were like, look at her skin, oh my God, it's like an oil slick, you could reach out and touch it. And it's almost like mind-boggling to me because I'm 25 now. This has been, I was 11, this has been like 15 years just about. It's crazy that I had to sit there and keep eating my lunch and just
So can't you just, I mean, right now, even just you feeling that, and how old were you, would you say, at that
11.
time? 11. Think about how brave that 11-year-old, I mean, when you just kind of feel some appreciation for what that 11-year-old went through and like shouldn't have had to go through. And wow, that is how we can kind of go back in and look, because sometimes at first when we do, we feel that shame of what we look like maybe, in the situation, and it might be hard, but that 11-year-old really needs your love and acceptance and validation on the feelings. And so what I'm able to do a lot of times, you probably experience this some, is I'll listen for how do you feel towards her? And if it's like, oh, she looks awful, or something like that, then I know that we're not in wholeness yet. And so I'll say, well, let's let that judgmental thought step aside, or maybe I won't say judgmental. Let's let that thought process step aside for a moment. And then, how do you feel now? Well, I feel really angry at those children who are saying that. Okay, yeah, that's really acceptable. So let's let that angry step aside, that angry aspect of self step aside, and then eventually, when it's, will say, how do you feel now? And if it's like a C word, like I'm really curious, or I'm caring, or I just want to give her a hug, I just want to love this little girl, then I know purely in self. And then, a lot of times the inner child will look right back, and that's where we can start just really validating the experience and how awful and wrong it was for the person, and sending her so much love and just filling her with love and helping to heal that. And then there's some fun. So here's my favorite part about hypnosis is that it is limitless. Like, it's like being in a lucid dream. You can do anything. So we might freeze everything in there, and you might just pop up as the adult observer, almost like a parent coming in, and maybe you say something to those kids to stand up for your inner child, or maybe you allow her to stand up and say what it is she wanted to say at that time but couldn't say. And
gives me chills.
Right. And it's really powerful because that needs to be, or, if that's not the right way to express it, maybe we throw some rocks or different things away, not at the people, but, and then we'll move into more of a different segment where we start to work on releasing that. And
Yeah.
that may be pulling the children who said that or the person that really hurt you forward, and they have to listen, and you can really just let them have it, say everything,
Yeah.
get it all off your chest. Maybe we blow those angry feelings or those sad feelings into balloons or put them in packages, but the point is we're feeling and allowing that energy to come out of our body. And what we're also doing during that time is realizing this is something that was wrong with them or their idea or their perception that they put on you. This is
Yeah.
not who you are. This isn't actually, this is just a label, but this isn't you. This doesn't define you or your worth or your beauty or anything else. It was just a phase.
Yeah.
And then sometimes we'll even be able to connect and kind of ask what's going on with those kids to make them say such mean things. And sometimes it may not be anything, but sometimes there can be really, sometimes there can be some very amazing revelations, especially dealing with parents or siblings or something like that. It's just amazing maybe what the subconscious mind might have known or heard and what will come through, and just amazing forgiveness or ease in the body. I don't even
Yeah.
really love the word forgiveness, to be truthful, because I feel like there's a
Okay.
lot that people have resistance towards with that.
Yeah.
But to me, I don't care if you really forgive those kids or not.
Yeah.
They're long gone in the past. But really, what it's about is the ability to truly feel at peace in your mind, body, and soul, like getting it out of your system, that toxicity, that.
Yeah.
And so, when we use the word forgiveness, it really means that we've entered into a place where we can just really let it go completely, and that is really what it's about. It's not about accepting it or it being okay. It's about you being okay.
Yeah, absolutely. And I agree with you about the word forgiveness. It's almost sometimes like my mouth doesn't even want to let the word come out at
Right.
times, because it's like, where was my sorry for this? For me to give you, for me to mentally set myself free, there was no sorry. But that's that's the funny part about it, is sometimes, like the philosophy book, I always refer to this, Don Miguel Ruiz's
Oh, my favorite. Yes.
Mastery of Love.
Oh,
it's so
Mastery of Love. It's on my,
it's
I have so few Instagram posts, and Mastery of Love is one of the ones on there because it touched me so. I mean, he has such a great
incredible.
way of saying things so simply and understandable to everyone. And
Yeah.
I just hope everyone reads that book.
Me too. I mean, I never thought that I would like it more than the Fourth and the Fifth Agreement, but I like that one the best. But what does he say? When you open the wound with the scalpel of truth, forgiveness is the medicine that heals the wound. And it's so
And how
hard
he starts it off, like right where you're finishing, what you're saying, it starts off with, what if we were on a planet where everybody had these open wounds, and just to touch or hug or anything would create such pain?
Ugh.
And really what he's meaning by that is that we all have these wounds, or, especially children can be dealing with their own bully. Maybe somebody is bullying them, and so they're turning around and bullying somebody else. Maybe they have a really difficult thing. Whatever reason it is making them feel better about themselves in that moment. And sadly, it continues sometimes into adulthood, maybe a little more of a filter. But in truth, whenever somebody needs to put someone else down or make someone else feel bad about themselves, it's because they need to feel better about themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And if we could just teach, if we could find a way to really change that in the world and really start filling and plugging and making one another feel uplifted rather than negative. And all kids are going to go through a phase of saying things that they just sometimes see and notice, but there's a difference between that younger age and just mean.
Yeah. Well,
mean.
beautifully spoken. I want to move from Don Miguel Ruiz really quick to Joe Dispenza's work.
Oh, yeah.
Love Joe Dispenza. So something that also going back to my session, the inner child work. You had me sit with my 5-year-old self on the carpet of my kindergarten room at one of the first times that I shared with you I've ever felt awkward or embarrassed in my life. And, you know, just for shits and gigs, guys, I'll share it today on the show.
And please don't feel like you have to if you don't want to. Most people.
Hey, I don't mind. I
And want to just put a little word in here.
Yeah.
All hypnosis sessions would if the person wants to share, always. But of course, it's between me and you. Unless if you want to share it, then I'll speak to it and speak about it. If like in this situation, but I wouldn't ever tell anyone or say anything to anyone about it. Your files, everything is kept very HIPAA.
And I love that about you, because I can really tell, I like to study the archetypes, and in my older years now, the past couple of years of studying the archetypes, I make sure to stay far away from the gossip archetype. Don't get me wrong, sometimes the gossip archetype can be put in a work realm, or a realm of work that suits them, like people sharing news, even writers like myself, some could call me a gossip just because I like to write. Sure. I don't look at it like that, but yeah, so I don't mean to like debunk that archetype of the gossip altogether, but one thing that made me feel very safe in you guys' your practice with all of your beautiful workers or coworkers, is that I didn't sense anybody there that, wants to, absorb maybe what someone's going to tell them in a session and then run and tell Barbara or Susan or your partners. I like that it truly is a safe space, a safe haven to disclose whatever you want with any of the therapists you see. And you guys are so genuine about everything, and it really means a lot to know that what we say in these sessions is only shared if we feel comfortable sharing.
And sometimes if a person is interested in another practitioner, we may ask, is it okay if we kind of share some of the information? A lot of times we'll do it with the person there involved, or but rarely ever, only because that way each practitioner can work on what it is they need to work on. It may be different than what one of us, or it may just be a very general, but even then it's with the permission of the person, and only if they want that. And some people, it's funny, are open like you, and they'll be sharing their whole session out in the open, and we're all enjoying and having fun, listening to it, and that's always great too. And
hey, so on that note, guys, I'll share this story with you because I really want to interrelate it to Joe Dispenza's profound work. So she had me go back to one of the first moments that I can ever remember as a child, being embarrassed and feeling shame, feeling awkward about something that I spoke from the heart and that was not digested well or consumed well from others. So all the way back to kindergarten, I'm sitting on the colorful rug. Everyone remembers the color block rug, right? Miss Moody's class. And Miss Moody, our kindergarten teacher, asks all of us, we had just read a book about tickling. So, everyone has their tickle spots. And Miss Moody's like, why don't we go around the room and everybody share your tickle spots? Which sounds like today, maybe this would be a little different, but completely innocent. Everyone's like, my armpits, my neck, my feet, my feet. So that's what it was. And we're going around and they get to me And I was so excited to tell everybody. And I said, she said, Carly, what's your tickle spot? And I said, when you speak and I'm trying to remember exactly what it was. I said, when you speak and it tickles my ears and it tickles my neck and like the side of my neck or something like that. And the whole class looked, she looked at me really confused. The assistant teacher looked at me really confused. And I mean, it's just an answer maybe no one had ever heard before. And then I immediately felt shame with what I had said. I was like, is this wrong for someone's voice to tickle me? But it's always been like that.
Well, isn't it funny now that there's like a whole following of YouTube people listening for that little sounds that make that tickle in their ear and their neck, you know,
ASMR, right?
Yeah, exactly. Isn't it funny? You were just so ahead of your time.
I'm like, ASMR, guys. ASMR tickles my ear. But you had me go and visit this girl you had me visit my 5-year-old self as my 25-year-old self. And oh my gosh, I was crying like a little baby in there. It felt so good. And I just was looking at myself and she was looking at me, and you had me exist in this space with her, in this room with her, and tell her that it's okay. You're going to grow up to be this incredible woman, and none of this matters what people think right now. You know, you just really poured into me and allowed me to share and go back to this girl, a moment in time which needed to happen, because my goodness, that needed to be addressed. And interrelating it to Joe Dispenza's work, he talks about something that I have said my entire life, that I have felt to be true for me, that we can exist. Our existence is limitless. We can exist in many at many places at many different times. And you know, he talks about how we can exist with our past self, with our present self. In the moment of visiting our past self, we can exist with our future self in that moment. I mean, there was a time before this podcast where we were already existing in this room, thinking about it. And there's going to be a time 1, 2, 5, 10, 15, 20, 40, 30 years from now where we're existing in this same room, in this same moment. And oh God, that is so beautiful to me. So for that to be a part of hypnotherapy is just
and
incredible.
Remind me during that time on the rug too, didn't we kind of explain it to the teacher a little as well to help her not overreact so much, and how it made you feel, something like that? And who knows where Miss Moody is even today, you know, who knows? But really it's about standing up for that inner child and kind of showing, this wasn't a big deal. And yet it made me feel so bad. But more than dealing with the other person, most of the time the focus is on you and your inner child. But you're right. And that is such a beautiful way of tying it in with Joe Dispenza's work. And it is amazing. It's amazing to see these aspects interacting with us, and how it can change your whole perception. It can change your relationships that you have with somebody, the way you look at someone. And it just releases. It's releasing a limiting belief or some sort of shame in you, and it's going back to the beginning and clearing it out. And so it's like one less thing we have to deal with, and it frees us and helps to bring us back to our wholeness.
Yeah, and I mean, it felt so incredible that day. So I want to know right now from you, what would you say to anybody that is fearing hypnotherapy, or, you know, the misconceptions and the myths that come along with hypnotherapy?
Well, there certainly are a lot of misconceptions and myths, and not all of them are completely wrong. There's also different ways people do hypnosis or hypnotherapy. We have the stage performers who do create a lot of fear in people. I get that a lot. Are you going to make me act like a chicken? And I'm like, no, absolutely not. I wouldn't last very long if that's what I was doing.
Yeah.
They're for entertainment, but what I do credit them with is it's quite astonishing. They really show the power of hypnosis up there on screen, or on live, or for
the Vegas stages, right?
Yeah, I mean, it what they do and what you can do in hypnosis is amazing and fun. But the difference in my form with hypnotherapy is I'm not there ever to embarrass anyone. I'm there, we're having a back and forth conversation, and the goal is purely just to help empower you to use your own mind, to hold that space and to take you back using the tools. I mean, trance is, I guess this would be a myth, is the word trance, and it implies people think of like a zombie or mind control, being under the influence of someone, especially after watching a stage act, and they're like, well, they were making them do things that they would never do. And yes, to a certain degree, some people use it that way to have fun and stage shows and things like that. But my form of hypnosis, or hypnotherapy in general, I am not really there to put things in your mind. Perhaps a few affirmations that we might come up with together, or filling you up, or just a few words to help you, uplifting, things like that. But like you mentioned earlier, you are awake and you are able to discern what I'm saying and what you're thinking. It's a very interesting realm to be in. And, people correct me all the time, or if I accidentally say a name that's wrong, like if I say Miss Mindy instead of Miss Moody, they're like, no, it's Miss Moody. So there is...
shout out Miss Moody.
No. Can we say that anyway?
Right.
But that's just a way for people to understand that we're working together in this, and that they're not under my control or my influence. I'm just helping to get them to that state that is a natural state that we go into, but then we're able to use it for a purpose, and I'm able to hold you there for a longer amount of time, But speaking to that too, to alleviate some fears, people are like, well, what are you doing to get me there, And the truth is, it is a natural state. We go in and out of it every night before we're falling asleep. It's the state where we're still kind of aware. We might be starting to get a little bit of dreams, but we're still kind of knowing. It's just like we're starting to turn more inward. And really, that is the best description I can give, is that we're turning our attention inward, and we're letting everything else zoom out of focus. And so sometimes people experience that when watching movies. You could be in a movie theater and all the popcorn and noises are driving you nuts. And then as you really get in tuned, everybody else just fades away, and it's just you watching the movie. And then you might look up, back and realize, oh yeah, I'm still in a movie theater. You're so drawn in, And so I think that is kind of a close way of experience, of thinking about it. It's very hard to describe. And in a lighter way, some people, I sometimes do this, experience it while driving. It's like, whoo, I'm already there. And it's not that I'm not aware of driving. I absolutely am. But it's just that it went by very fast, and many things are processing in my mind.
I resonate with that.
Yeah. And that is sort of a form of time, of trance state as well. So anytime that we're going inwardly, or just able to like let everything else sort of fade away and just focus on self, that would be what I would describe it as. And one last thing I think that I really like to say to alleviate people's fears, more than anything, is that every day in every way we are getting hypnotized through advertisements, through billboards, through radios, and news. There's so much coming at us. And so there's a very big difference when you come to someone like myself or Sami, the other hypnotherapist at Healing Leaves, and that you and I are working together for a goal. And every time we sit down and watch a movie or a commercial or anything like that, certain trigger words are going straight into our subconscious mind, and they can create fears that we don't even know that were put there. I mean, let's just think about a typical commercial for medicine. It can trigger us, one, to think that about an illness that we didn't even know we might have had, but our symptoms match. So it's starting to go into our mind, or that we, and I'm not here to doubt on that. It's just how it's advertising has it down, and it's without really our permission or our knowing, our understanding. There's not a contractual agreement of what's going into your mind.
Mm-hmm.
You're kind of caught off guard. You're doing other things and it's slipping right in.
Yeah.
And then that, and like we were talking about with the hypnotic anchors, just somebody saying something mean, rude. Those are all types of things that are going and bypassing that critical faculty, that moment of being like, hey, wait, what? If somebody were to come up to you and be like, hey, the sky is green. And you're like, no, actually the sky is blue. You're just going to be like, whatever, something's wrong with, But if somebody's like, oh, is that a zit starting to form on your face? That maybe becomes something very triggering to, or something like that. So, it's just these differences. And basically, trying to sum this up a little bit, to me, there's nothing more fascinating than being able to use our own mind to empower ourselves to become a better person, overcome our fears, overcome our habits. Some may be afraid, like when we're talking about the inner child work, oh, I don't want to go back there and dredge up old pain, but it happens really fast, and it's really not a scary experience. It's very beautiful.
Yeah.
Even in some of the more traumatic things that I have helped people through. And, so I don't know if there's any other, I feel like those are kind of the main fears is different things from movies and stuff, but also some people who are just nervous about what they're going to find. And maybe the other thing is some people are afraid, like, well, I don't really want to know, like that. Maybe there was something bad in my childhood and I don't remember, and I don't want to dredge it up. Or maybe I don't want to be mad at my mom or dad. But in this type of therapy, this isn't the goal. It's not about dredging up old past hurts and making you mad at everybody. It's really about pulling it out of you and helping you to come back to wholeness. And in your experience, you could probably speak to this, that I would say most of the time people would come out of it feeling maybe a little more connected to someone that they were having a conflictual relationship with prior to.
Yeah, I felt connected to so many more people in my life. When we did the grief work with my dad of saying everything that I wanted to say to him, I felt more connected to his spirit and, the love that I feel in my heart towards him. And I was able to really let go of a lot of things. We all are going to have things that we regret when we lose someone, but they are in nirvana now. They are in pure euphoric bliss. Those emotions don't even exist where they're at, and they don't want us to feel them anymore.
But we hold on to them and can hold on to it for so long. Many times some of the first deaths we may encounter as children are grandparents and things like that. And there can be a lot that people hold on to about maybe not spending enough time, or maybe they were asked to spend some time and they didn't, and they're still feeling that. And then there can be a fear of, I better make every single visit every time somebody asks me to do something. And we're often able to go back and release that fear and also see that we were going through different stages of life and that we've learned certain things from that. So we can't hold our 18-year-old self accountable in the same way. Like, it's time to let it go sometimes, or 8-year-old self, or 13. We can just start to see that what does guilt really do, after a while, once we've processed it, as long as we're not hurting anyone. It's like if we're just holding on to it to punish ourselves over and over again, why? Especially when that's not what they would want for us.
Absolutely. And going back to what you said about some people kind of being scared to revisit different times in their lives. I feel like everyone that knows my family and knows my mom, everyone is very hyper fixated on the loss of my father to suicide right now. because we just hit 3 years ago, 3 years ago, about a month ago now. But upon getting the hypnotherapy session for my mom for Christmas, we were driving to my grandma's Christmas Day, and she was telling me she's excited and she's wondering how it works, and she's completely open to it. And, I start to pour into her and I tell her, well, Mom, I think that this is really going to help you a lot with Dad, but I want to go back to, I'm not going to say her age on here, but she's my mom. But I said, I want to go back to your 10-year-old self. I want to go back to when you lost your mom, because you've told me my entire life, you've mentioned it many times, and she's not one to victimize herself, but almost so much so to the point where she's so strong, and she's been so strong that it can in turn create her living life on autopilot. And I said, I want this hypnotherapy session, of course, to help you with Dad, but I want you to go back to when you lost your mom, because she lost her mom in the biggest tornado to ever come through North Carolina in '83. Wow. She wakes up in the hospital. She had been thrown almost like a mile from her house. 10-year-old little. My mom's pretty petite. Found under a hot water heater in, I want to say she was in a coma, and she wakes up in a full body cast. She had missed her own mother's funeral. Wow. And her mother was just this enigmatic, larger than life, like beautiful but feisty. She talks about how she took her to the skating rink all the time, and she was so much fun. Yeah. And I said, she's mentioned that she's not gotten the help, especially in those childhood years that she needed. And then it's so easy to go through life and be like, oh, well, that window has passed. We're no longer here anymore. I don't need help for this. Yeah. And I could see, we were driving, but I could see behind her sunglasses, that she was crying, but tears of joy, because I think it maybe mentally set her free or opened her up a little bit to have someone hold that space for her and acknowledge and almost know like that you guys are there waiting on her, waiting to help her tackle this. And she just feels so good. I mean, it's almost like a motherly love coming from you guys. And if you think about that, that does make sense, because when you're helping someone target the loss and the grief of losing loved ones, and you specialize in, what is it called?
Specialize. Well, I certainly help people with grief a lot, but I don't know. I don't necessarily specialize in grief, but I'm not sure if there's something else that you're.
I think I guess I thought you specialized in it because you did such a phenomenal job with me.
I just work with so many different things, but grief is a big one that comes up often.
So it was almost like a fatherly presence for me that day. Like I felt my dad's energy and just let it go, so I hope to my mom, it's that motherly energy of, knowing you're okay, you're supported, you can be with us here. And I think that just that alone is so needed in this hurt world.
To even go in and comfort her own. So I like to call it, or we call it like reparenting the inner child. And so it's going back and now like, getting to give the love and support from your adult self. So now she has the resources of being a mother, knowing all of what she knows, and then being able to go back in and really help that traumatized little girl. And I would like to mention too that, grief comes in so many different layers. So you can oftentimes get grief counseling or have a great support system at the time. And, but you're only limited to the resources you have, as far as your age of being 10. What do you bring? How do you help your, self with that? And amazing counselors, definitely. So it's going to be a different experience, even with somebody who really got the treatment or care that they may have needed at that time. It's going to be very different than coming back in and addressing it later with the help of the adult self, like being your own mother to that figure and knowing exactly what she's feeling and exactly what she needs, and being able to love her in the perfect way is really powerful.
Yeah, that is just extremely powerful. My last question that I have for you today is going to be, what would you say the biggest breakthrough you have seen someone, a client, friend, family member, experience after a hypnotherapy session with you?
Wow. So, I do get asked that sometimes, and I try and think about it. And to me, every single session is so different and so transformative in its own way.
Hard to pick one.
I mean, and so of course we have the types where people break addictions for life that they've struggled with. Sometimes, they have cancer or other things that they're really strong health issues, and they really need to break these habits, and to be able to help them do that is life-changing and transformative. I would say that the ones that really touch me the most are whenever families are able to reconnect due to some of the work that was done. And there is one particular one that stands out, and it kind of leans to, it's not that this is always going to go this way. I don't want people to think that I'm spiritually bypassing in any way, or saying that there's not like very real trauma. But when it does play out this way, and in this particular case, it was just so special that the child was being raised by a caretaker, and close to adolescence or so, and a comment or something was made that really, really hurt. I mean, obviously very much to the core. And we're speaking about, like, this was 30, 40 years later, and the person had never really felt love, connected, and really hadn't even spent much time at all with this caretaker who was getting up in their years. And we were able to bring the adult self back in and observe. And now that that person was a parent themselves, and kind of knew that sometimes we might be in a bad mood and make a comment, but if we look at the big picture of how overall they treated us most of the time, and by observing it and seeing it from the adult or even their own parent experience perspective, they were able to see that it was just a bad moment for that person rather than how that person actually felt about them. And I did not put this into their head. This was just them observing and coming to their own conclusions about it, reconciling. And when they came out, they were like, oh my gosh, I've been holding on to this for so long, and I just never had seen it this way or thought about it. I really thought this is how they felt about me. And what was so special about that is that the person was able to spend Thanksgiving and Christmas before the caretaker passed away, early in the next year after that. And so it was just them reporting back to me that was really special, that they were able to spend that time without that feeling that they had carried with them for that long. So that's just one example. There's so many. Being able to take the pain away sometimes. I've had Parkinson patients or people who often shake so much, and when I'm able to get them so deeply relaxed, and that they can just have a time of no shaking at all, and just, I mean, not saying that would happen for everyone, but I've had cases that way, and it is, when they come out and say, I just look so forward to my hour with you, or hour and a half, or whatever it may be each week, because during that time I get to just go into a purely blissful state, and I don't shake, and I get to forget and leave all my concerns and worries behind, helping people prepare to transition in life, because so many people don't want to have that conversation, and sometimes it's really needed for a person who's facing that, whether they're old or whether they have something going on, terminal or something like that. And so just to be able to hold that space and let them express their feelings, I mean, that is also very touching to my heart. So I feel like there's just so many ways that transformational, but so often just to hear someone say, wow, I feel like my whole perspective on life has changed. To have somebody who, speaking, kind of to your situation, who could not see themselves in a way at all that maybe even other people saw them in such a beautiful way, but their own perception of themselves was so bad that they were ready, to let it go and to be able to take them back in and to see that their actions do not define them. Other people's words do not define them, to take them back to their wholeness, to the beginning, and let them see who they really are, and to
Purity.
help them feel pure and whole again. I feel like there's really no better feeling in the world for somebody to be on the brink of feeling so worthless and changing it completely and being able to kind of see their life in a whole new way and to just take off from there.
I mean, I just have to say, Amber, you and the gift that you have to offer people is truly just so special, so immensely special. And anybody, I think, can benefit from this truly, because we've all been through different traumas, different experiences. But before we close out today, I feel like I've had you in the hot seat.
It's been so enjoyable. I would like to say one quick thing if I could, and maybe you were even going to go here.
Give you the chance to ask me.
I just want to say too, for anyone who maybe feels fearful, or all this inner child stuff might be a little too much or something, that there's the opposite way too, that I also do work with teenagers or sports performance, people who need test anxiety or visualizing overcoming
an injury.
Overcoming injuries, overcoming fear of success, or the test anxiety, or trying to think, or just when they go out on a field, maybe they practice amazingly well, and then they get their performance anxiety. And that's so much fun too. And there's actually a lot of science and credibility to the power of visualization, and just adding it into your routine is so big, and it's measurable, you know, and it's just, the mind is powerful. We are always giving directions to our subconscious mind, and it could be by the words that we're saying to ourselves, like, oh, I'm so stupid. Well, then we start seeing ways that make us look stupid, or people commenting that make us feel stupid, or look how fat I am in the mirror. And that literally becomes a hypnotic suggestion to ourselves that we want to be fat. And so it's not that anyone says it purposely, or they don't know, but we can start to understand how our language, how our thoughts, how other people's language and thoughts affect ourselves, one another. And I really hope that also coaches and teachers will also hear this and understand that they can make such a massive difference in these children's lives. They can be the people who really lift them up, and not just the starters on the team or the best of the best. They could be the difference of a child who maybe isn't very good, but they decided to go out and try out, and maybe they're like the last running the laps, and they're struggling, and maybe they don't even ever get to see the field. But a coach can really have that chance to build that confidence up in them, and just say the right words or motivate them in the right way. And I have 2 boys, and I have seen some really amazing coaches out there who have uplifted, and I've seen some not so amazing. And I hope with all the life coaching and different types of, not like sports coaching, but the training of coaching that is out there and available, that more sports or dance or anything that has to do with children and their confidence and what is being put into them, modeling any of that. I really would encourage anyone who is influencing children in any capacity to go and get some coaching skills and learn how their words can motivate or decimate. I don't know, did I say that wrong? But that is something I feel so passionate about, because most of the time, everyone's out there doing, maybe they're volunteering, maybe they're working and not getting paid very much, and they're tired. But when you start to feel like, you're looking at me like, wow, what you're doing is amazing, but each one of us in every job that we take on can be doing the same thing for
Yeah.
each person. We can be uplifting them and building their confidence. And maybe it's a kid that comes back when they're 21 and was like, do you know how you made me feel? I never wanted to read a book, but your encouraging words made me feel smart enough to pick up a book and read it. And then, wow, that teacher right there in that moment changed a life, you know, and they all do in so many ways. And I don't mean to be downplaying in any way, but I'm just saying that I really think that we can all become more aware, because if we can start to help with the little ones, then there's not so much work to do when they're grown and go back in, you know.
Absolutely. Self-awareness is key. And I love how beautifully you put all of that. You are such an incredible and proficient speaker. So thank you so much for being here tonight. I had so much fun with you.
Gosh, thank you. I feel like the time just flew by.
I know.
And it was amazing.
Yeah,
I enjoyed
oh my God, it absolutely was. And you guys, if you ever have the chance to see Amber or any of the other practitioners at Healing Leaves.
Say Asami as well. Asami is another hypnotherapist at Healing Leaves, and you didn't get the opportunity to try her.
Yeah.
Many of her skills are similar and the same, and she has just the most beautiful heart energy. And so I just really want to like throw, just a shout out to her as well, because she does an amazing job, and we get to help one another. And I guess that sort of speaks to like the fact that we have two hypnotherapists. You know, sometimes we will have numerous people kind of doing the same type of work, but there's so much need for help, and there's no need to compete, because there's more than enough.
Your people are going to find you.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
I love that that's what you guys believe in. So again, thank you so much for being here today. Shout out to all of your practitioners.
All of them.
Oh my God, they're all so incredible. So if you guys
amazing.
are in the Wilmington, North Carolina area, surrounding area, North Carolina at all, Virginia, South Carolina, Georgia, Healing Leaves is different than any other space, in my opinion. So definitely give them a try, and follow them on Instagram too.
Yeah, follow us on Instagram. And even if you're not from the North Carolina area, for instance, Asami and I in hypnotherapy, and quite a few of the different practitioners are able to do Zoom.
Okay, good.
And it works
good to
in
know.
the same way
Good
as
to know.
well. So yeah.
Good to know.
Yeah. So thank you.
You are so welcome. All right, guys, until next time, and I will add their Instagram name in the description below. But until next time, stay bloomy brained.